Albert said, inside us the dead. Maybe I wouldn't feel so lonely if my body could recall those connections. There are only silences. I am bound, this place, time and space, the vow with the past is broken. Even when pregnant, my body feels like a ship lost in water, afloat, remote, solitary, and heaving with seasickness. I did not feel the Mercury line, connecting those before me to their destiny. I am not capable of thinking this blood is a ripple. In an ocean of our blood, I am the next wave of a tide that has been coming for a long time. This vein leads back to my bones. This is what I have learnt from the books. I am an individual, but I suspect my body remembers you all, the curve of my legs, the shape of my fingers, the face of my son, yes, every limb, every bend, every bone is a recollection of who has been before, a memory of all the bodies that have been the making of me, inside us, the dead.
That was Inside Us, the Dead by Carlo Miller, read by our guest today, Ruby Macomber.
Yo.
Thank you so much.
Oh, the tea is hot. The literal cup of tea there.
Better than it being cold. That would be extremely
Yeah,
disappointing.
true.
The first question I always ask, but I never tire of it, is why did you choose that poem?
I love the way that it rolls off the tongue. I even just reading it then, I hadn't read it out loud in a long time, and it feels like your body is rolling like waves as you read it.
Yeah.
And even just the idea of a single body speaking to all those that have come before it. I love that idea. Yeah, I've got so many poems that like speak to my nan, and I love poems where people are writing about those that have come before them, or reimagining, if they don't know the history, like reimagining what those histories were that led to them and led to their whakapapa. I think that's really beautiful, and yeah, just Carla's poetry is really beautiful.
When did you first start reading poetry?
Reading, as in like reading aloud, or reading
like
just
reading poetry.
Reading poetry.
Like, was it something that you picked up in school, or has poetry been something in your life longer than that? Brings up the question of what is poetry as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I probably was first introduced with I first read what a lot of people would consider like page poems in school, but yeah, didn't resonate with them, kind of found English a bit tedious.
Do you remember any of the poems that you're, I'm going to say, forced to read?
Honestly, no. I think I loved reading I remember a lot more of the work that my friends were writing at the time, and I loved reading their stories, and I think being able to put people to poetry was something that I appreciated at that time, because yeah, like looking back now, I don't know what kind of poems I was reading then, only that they were just, they really were just like words on the page. But I think I first started like actively seeking out poems probably late 2017, early 2018. Yeah.
What was going on in your life then that made you sort of like start to seek it out?
I think I was seeking them out at the same time that I was trying to write them. My nan, who had a real massive role in raising me, was like wahine toa, super, super incredible, beautiful, fierce. She passed away in 2017, and I guess coming from a whānau where we didn't talk about a whole lot, it was like the only way to navigate that was through poetry and through writing. And I don't think I called it poetry at the time. It was just creating stuff for me and for my whānau and for anyone who wanted to read it. But I think it was like navigating that grief that led me then into poetry, but then into seeking out other poetry and how other people are telling these stories and navigating intense emotions at, I was quite young then, so at quite a young age.
That's that really sort of opens up I guess a lens as to why you chose that poem as well then, and that connection with your nan, and poetry allowing you to have connections with people that have passed. And it's interesting because it brings up the idea of grief as well, and like what the experience of grief is, and how also our cultures allow us or don't allow us to grieve as well.
Exactly.
So in a way it's like a shame that by the sounds of it you had to sort of like deal with that internally and express it on the page. But on the other hand, it sounds like, I don't know, that you like you managed to explore like a really beautiful gift in that way as well.
I don't think I would have found poetry any other way. There was kind of no one in my family, no one in my whānau are writers or interested in that kind of stuff. Not many creatives, I guess, and so I think kind of falling into it in that way, even though like the circumstances weren't great, it's made me reframe a lot of things, how I think about grief and how I think about joy and how I think about the preservation of those things on the page or spoken like into space and like spoken word poetry. So yeah, not like a conventional way to enter poetry, but I guess
what is a conventional
exactly
way?
And I'm like grateful for it for sure, because it means that it was a way for me to process that, but also then meet the communities that engage in poetry and meet some incredible people. So
Do you remember the first time you encountered a Kalumila poem?
I think it was that poem actually. I think it was in maybe it would have been first year uni. It was either end of high school or when I was kind of moving into uni, where I was trying to find Pacific poets, and I was as I said before, like poets whose work I could picture the person to, and I don't know, I think I was just literally Googling Pacific poets, and then you come up, there was I think it was like I think it's called the Pacific Poetry Archives or something online, and there's like a digital record of a lot of like early 2000s poems, and so it was captured there. And so because poetry books are expensive, and especially like more modern poetry books, so it was those like early 2000s online copies of poems that I would just like scroll and then print off and then stick on the insides of journals and, and stuff.
That's so romantic. That's cute.
Cute little Ruby. But I think I legit think that's how I found that poem, and I've been obsessed with it for a very long time.
Well, it's a really beautiful poem. So you were trying to find Pacific poets. Was that mainly because you were like, I want to find more voices like mine as well? Or was it also connected to your studies, or are those two things inextricably linked as well?
I think they are definitely linked. Trying to find voices that spoke to being like Pacific in the diaspora, especially because I feel like there's and what I'm loving seeing now is a whole bunch of young Pacific poets publishing in Aotearoa, speaking to that diasporic link and speaking to the idea of like calling home, calling to the islands, calling to generations that have had these really intense migration stories and carry these really intense histories, and may not know their entire history. So I think that idea I really wanted to lean into more. And yeah, reading Pacific poets' work, even the imagery, like word combinations would excite me. And wow, that sounds real nerdy. Like,
this is a nerdy podcast.
Like there were
It is
images
allowed.
that you wouldn't find in any Pākehā poet's work, and then you'd see them on the page and go, wow, like they get it, they get it, they see it. Yeah.
And I think it's also speaks to the experience. I can't speak to this, but I imagine that it speaks to the experience of being a Pasifika reader as well, reading that, because as a Pākehā reader, there might be word combinations that really excite someone else. Like, I wouldn't be able to spot that because I'd be like, it's not for me, so I wouldn't be able to see it. And I imagine that that's a unique experience to be able to read something and be like, that is written for me as well. Yeah.
And how affirming it is, especially like if you're in the diaspora and kind of have this really, it's a and have a unique understanding of what it means to be Pacific. I think, being seen in poems, especially poems on the page, and how there are all the stereotypes of if you're on the, if you're published, it's this really like elitist thing. Like if your words are on the page, society says that they matter the most, when we know that that's just how like Western history has captured. That's how like a lot of that like white poetry has been captured.
I mean, it's how Westerners captured history.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And storytelling.
It's all been on
like
the page.
If it's not on the page, it's not real, and that's like cornerstone part of the methods of colonialism is just denying every other form of storytelling. Shouldn't laugh, but like it's embarrassing, and I don't know, like it's a, and I guess this is all storytelling communities being a massive part of like a colonial weapon, essentially, because that's what Western storytelling in the Pacific is, unfortunately. But of course, when you read poems by and for people who aren't Pākehā, it's a powerful tool can be a powerful tool to decolonize as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think just as our words come from these beautiful oratory cultures, they can exist in lots of different spaces, and I think it was exciting to see them on the page when I hadn't seen them on the page before.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about your degree, because you have completed the BA part of your studies? What did you study?
I did Pacific Studies and Psychology, and then I'm currently trying to finish a law degree.
All the power to you.
It's a bit of a drag, but I love it. I love it. And one of the actually am I? I think I'm when I graduate, I'll be the first one to graduate, which is super exciting. But I think the Pacific Studies and Psychology components of my BA speak to both like trying to understand mental health and how to support mental health and mental well-being in the communities that I hold close, as well as like understanding diasporic identity and how crazy and confusing that can be.
What's at the crux of Pacific Studies? Because, like, I think a lot of people listening might not know what that even is.
Given that universities are colonial institutions.
Yeah. love that note.
That's a really good question. I don't think you can really boil it down to one thing, just as you couldn't boil down. I've heard there's European studies now, which really confuses me because I'm like, isn't that just
university?
Isn't that just university? But no, apparently there's a European studies major. Anyway,
yeah.
Oh, bless. But I guess a few of the areas that I've studied in that have covered everything from like Pacific history, both pre-colonial and with settler colonialism as well. Pacific languages, Pacific diasporic identities, which was real cool. Pacific health and well-being. Pacific innovation and sustainability, which was sick. What else?
Yeah, I mean, it sits under BA, but really it's
everything.
It's everything.
But also in trying to be everything, you're homogenizing a incredibly vast and diverse community and area.
And languages and histories.
100%. Like, I guess because Tamaki especially is incredibly Polynesian in terms of the Pacific communities that are here. And, we don't necessarily have as many Micronesian and Melanesian lecturers and academics in the space. Those teaching into Pacific studies are primarily Tongan, Samoan, and from the Cook Islands. And so there is like a, even though it's Pacific studies, there is a lot of the thought is centered in Polynesia, which, can be problematic, but can also be really beautiful and affirming for those who do whakapapa to Polynesia or to that whenua. Yeah.
And your law degree, where do you think you want to take that?
I stumbled into law in my second year of uni after being like, law too hard, law too scary, law too Pākehā. And then got into Te Kāhui in 2020, and then with that being kind of started to see law as a mechanism to advocate and to create change, and so kind of then got the confidence to go into it. I think while the law a lot of people say it operates in the way that it is supposed to, and that it's an inherently like colonial tool, at least in Aotearoa. There are ways to lead reform, lead abolition that really excite me, are ways to empower indigeneity. But that's kind of the reason why I want to get into it.
Well, you're working in a number of spaces: linguistic, storytelling, academic, legal, that are set up as colonial tools, but you're using them counter to that.
Trying.
To. Well, it's a I want to say huge and also like very noble pursuit, because like that's fucking hard. It's, it's trying to use the system to fight against itself in a way, and quite often, and it's like that's extremely challenging. But I guess that's part of the reason why you got involved in Te Kāhui, because that's part of that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what Te Kāhui is? Because I feel like most of our listeners will probably never have heard of it before.
And they should. Te Kāhui is quite a few things. It was conceived in early 2020, I believe, by Zach Devi, Eric Soakai, and Georgia Heta. All incredible, passionate writers, creatives, advocates who wanted to run creative writing programs in the correction space, so in prisons. I guess the whole idea around Te Kāhui is that everyone should have the opportunity to be creative, to understand their identity, to express for their own well-being, and there should be programs and spaces out there for people to do that in a way that feels safe and culturally grounded, equitable, accessible, everything like that. And so, Te Kāhui, we first started facilitating in the correction space in 2020. And then obviously with lockdowns, the space has changed a lot, and we've moved into community facilitation alongside corrections. But kind of the key aim overlaying the entire kaupapa is that poetry and storytelling shouldn't just be reserved for the elite. It should be for everyone, and everyone should feel empowered to share their stories and to own their stories and to feel proud of their voice. So creating opportunities for that.
I think it's quite radical, because I think on the surface everyone would agree with that statement that everybody should have access. But the reason why I perceive it to be radical is that a massive chunk of society, even people who are like in the arts space, would probably be quite quick to say that people who are in corrections like have lost certain rights. And I mean, like, I obviously don't believe that, but it's a huge part of, I guess, the way that we view corrections in New Zealand and in the whole Western world, is that when people are in that system, they lose access to society, and part of that is like the ability to also be like creative and expressive and stuff like that. So that's why I think this is radical, because it's completely flipping that script. And I think a lot of people would probably not even consider the fact that people in corrections need access to that, and it's not something that's provided.
Not it.
You know? Like, but people wouldn't think about that. They'd be like, they're housed, they're fed, and it's like that's not the full scope of what people have the right to have access to. Yeah.
Even if we think about rehabilitation, a lot of the extent to which corrections is a space for rehabilitation that's a whole other conversation that I'm not gonna
It's a can of worms
that
for sure.
I'm not gonna get into. But if we think about rehabilitation, and a lot of it comes back to what does it mean to reflect and process and look inward, creative writing relies on that. It relies on reflection. And so what better way to, not just creative writing, like storytelling in general requires reflecting to then express. So what better way to support the rehabilitation process than by providing people with space to feel and space to express, especially in an inherently colonial institution like corrections. And even just going back to the idea of a disproportionate amount of our Māori and Pacific community are disproportionately represented in that space, and oratory, storytelling being so intrinsic to who we are as tangata moana. But it's important, it's necessary to,
for sure. When you first started doing the work, with Te Kāhui. I mean, as with all of your work, it's political but also personal. What were some of the it's a very stereotypical question, but like what were some of the challenges for you? Like, I imagine, like, I have a friend who is a defense lawyer, and he spends quite a lot of time in corrections and visiting folks there, and after working in that space for a day, he often feels quite drained just because of being in that space. Was it like for you personally?
I think I had gone into corrections prior to starting Te Kāhui in a very different capacity, and so it was a space that I was familiar with, but I think it was interesting because we mainly operate in one of the men's facilities. I think being a young brown woman, I kind of went in feeling like I needed to have my guard up, and I felt like I needed to have my guard up. Still approaching it with the same aroha and the same passion and the same energy as I would any other space, but I definitely was cognizant of the fact that my positionality in there, but I think what I realized very quickly, and something that I wasn't aware of prior to doing that work in that space, is how so many of the tāne that we've worked with have lent into their emotions and experiences in the kaupapa, in ways that I wasn't necessarily anticipating. And
there's an element of vulnerability from them.
Yeah. Which, was something that and definitely it was not an immediate thing. Just as in any space you need to open with whakawhanaungatanga, and you need to ensure that people feel as safe as they can given the circumstances, and as comfortable as they can given the circumstances. I felt really blessed to hear a lot of the stories that I've heard in that space, and holding them with a lot of love and a lot of awareness of the fact that sharing these stories are not easy, putting them on the page is not easy, reading them aloud is not easy, crafting them, having the mental energy to process and craft them, and our workshops were like a 2 hour block, in that time is not easy at all for anyone. So I think the the resounding feeling from that ramble is that I because I'd approached it feeling quite initially a little bit on the defense, a little bit like I had my guard up, I had to and how quickly that came down, and just felt really grateful to be able to share story in ways that felt
testament to you also, that you say that you felt that you had your guard up a little bit, but you also say that you went in there having aroha for the space as you would any other space, and that was
aroha for the people, not for the space.
Sorry, I mean, no, I guess to clarify, spaces in the space of people, not the space being corrections as
what it is,
as what it is, as a thing, and also the space that you were creating there as well. The fact that you went in with that kaupapa off the bat, even though you might have been like physically feeling different, is probably also why you got that response from people as well, because they like everybody can feel the intention with which somebody comes into a space, you know. That's really clear. So like shout out to you as well, you know.
Oh, I appreciate that, but I think a lot of the reason why, you know, the rangatahi have responded to the program so well is because Eric Soakai, the co-facilitator, the first time I facilitated a workshop was in corrections. My first ever facilitation session was in that space, whereas they have been facilitating for some time and can curate space really well. And so I think it's a testament to how well the energy that they approach different spaces, and how the energy they brought to that space was no different to the previous spaces they had facilitated as well. But yeah, and also just the ability to co-facilitate is something that I definitely do not take for granted.
I think this also leads into a question that sort of like popped up for me when you were speaking a little bit earlier about like creating a space that is safe, because I think often in arts facilitation, but also just like arts generally, including like theatre and stuff like that, we talk about safe spaces. But I guess like what does that actually mean? What do you think?
Yeah.
What things that contribute to a safe space? I'm not asking for like a concrete answer because it's not concrete, but like things that might contribute to a safe space.
It's so vague, eh? Like you hear it used all the time.
And often used in ways that are quite contrary to like what I would consider as well. Like, oh, this is a safe space, so say whatever you want. And it's like, that's not safe.
No. Yeah, I've heard it used. I went to like a uni poetry seminar, and it was one of like the coldest, most Pākehā spaces ever. And felt really, really elitist, and I felt way out of my comfort zone. And then someone was like, someone opened like the sharing time with, it's a safe space, and then proceeded to create something that was to foster a space that was definitely didn't feel safe. But I think how I've come to understand a safe space is one where you could sit down and feel your chest like loosen. You can attend to your needs and and be unapologetic about doing that. Like if you need to get into a position that's more comfortable for you to create or to share your story, then doing that. If you need to take a moment, then doing that. If you need food, water, bathroom, a moment to take a step back before you lean in, feeling comfortable doing that. Because so often like arts presentation spaces can be, I mean, the whole idea of like performance art, it's like regardless of what's going on behind the curtains, you bring and perform as if you're having the best day in the world. Rehumanizing a space, I think. The idea that a story is just as powerful on a good day as it is on a bad day. It can look like two different things, but it's not. It won't be devalued because you are human, and you're attending to your needs as a human. Who does that make it?
It does. It really does. It really does. And I think like it for me, I'm thinking about this also from a classroom perspective because I used to be a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And thinking about the fact that as an English teacher, I'm an arts facilitator, you know, like I ask students to write and share quite often. But in the classroom space and the way that that's set up, and I mean, like, you know, to be fair, I have significant power over what that looks like. But in the system of teaching, generally in our education system, we don't tend to those needs because the students have to be in the classroom. They have to be sitting at their desk. They have to write this certain way. They have to produce for a certain assessment. And like that doesn't create a space that tends to the needs which they might have in order to feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to share things that are, I guess, useful is not the right word, but like meaningful for themselves and their own storytelling, because that they're meeting the needs of the education system, not their own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's really interesting to me. And also what you were saying about performance as well. Again, this whole like idea of like there being like a pinnacle of like, I guess like being at your peak when you share a story, or like having to be like at your best. Again is a constructed a very much constructed, but also like we don't talk about the fact that it's constructed because it's like I guess a format that we're used to, that people perform their work. So okay, like it's a again quite a radical definition of what it means to be safe, to really just like tend to people's needs as humans. It shouldn't be radical, but it is.
That's crazy. The whole idea of to be a good performer is to turn off your human. I mean, I'm definitely not I wouldn't call myself a performer.
I mean, I would, but
but like, or even just to express art, just as you're sharing a story. The idea that you need to turn the human off in order to express the best. Isn't that just like elitist? And isn't that it feels cold and dehumanizing and yuck?
Heading into some like nerdy shit, but like it kind of makes me think about like Maslow's pyramid, which I think is inherently like a Western construct of like creating a hierarchy of needs. And I feel like the narrative is that you cannot create unless you're at the pinnacle, which this is sort of like leading into stuff that I did for my master's degree as well. So like just shameless self-promo a little bit. But like if you reframe it, I looked at Te Wharetapa Whā as I guess like approach to need, like human needs. Then creating is a need as much as other needs, and those things rely on each other rather than being a hierarchy, if that makes sense. Because if you don't look after your wairua, which is part of the need to create, then your other needs can't be met either. And also if you're not tending to your other needs, then you can't, like it's all interconnected rather than hierarchical, which is how we often look at art creation, art performance.
Even the idea of as you said with the hierarchy of needs, the idea that all your basic needs are met in order for you to then move up, progress up the pedal. Like in itself means that creating and expressing is inaccessible because you only get a certain number of people who can meet all those other needs that I guess are presented in the pyramid before creating.
Which I guess is also connected to the idea that people have around people in prisons and correctional facilities, that what they deserve is the bottom of the pyramid.
Which is disgusting.
Which is, it's fucked.
absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
And people who are saying that are typically those who are so far removed and so ignorant,
Both arrogant and ignorant. Yeah.
It is the brain buffering. Are so ignorant and arrogant that, like, who are you to even speak into this space? Fuck yeah.
But I mean, I think it's worth noting that, like, it's a significant portion of the population that believes these things, because we surround ourselves obviously with the bubble of people who see the world in similar ways to us. And I think often I meet someone who might say something like that and might be like, well, they're fed, I'd love to be in prison because I've got, like, they get food for free, like that kind of shit. I'm always like taken aback, and then I remember, like, that's just all the people outside my bubble who believe that shit. So it's like, again, I feel like it's obvious, but it's radical for you to be like, yeah, no, people in prison deserve
people in
just people in prison are people and deserve everything that people who aren't in prison deserve. Yeah,
100%.
It's radical. It's
But
radical.
it shouldn't be
It
radical.
shouldn't be. I should clarify. It shouldn't be. But in our current state of affairs, it is.
Which is baffling.
Yeah.
But yeah, just speaks to all the work that we need to do.
And that you are doing. I mean, like,
trying to.
Kumara speaks not of its own sweetness, but like you are doing the work. You're not doing all the work, but like the work that you do with Te Kāhui is part of that.
The team are really, really cool in that Michelle Rahurahu Scott, Parisa Dintoy, Eric and myself.
Shout out to all.
Shout out to the team. I don't know whether they'll listen to this. I hope that they do. Are all incredibly passionate, radical people. And so I think, yeah, and then we're a part of an ecosystem of connections with like Papa and with Just Speak and with other creative kaupapa and like abolitionist kaupapa that are also passionate and radical and having these conversations and spreading awareness, which is really exciting. So yeah, I like to think that as a small component of a broader ecosystem, we're doing, Te Kāhui is doing the work, or trying to. Yeah.
How has doing that work influenced your own writing? Because I mean, like, for me, working with students, working with young people influenced my writing in immeasurable ways. Always learning, always seeing things in new and different ways. Just like being around people always influences your writing. So do you feel like that work has influenced your own personal writing as well?
I think rather than the content of my writing, it's influenced the sense of grounding that I have in my own voice. The fact that we talk all about, equitable expression and empowering spaces. And a lot of that relies on us as creatives being self-aware and being both reflective and looking forward as well. So I think it's just I've become way more confident in myself and doing the work, which I didn't anticipate, and grounded in my whakapapa, as kind of complex and and all over the place as it is. And my own ability to tell stories. I think it's the performance aspect of poetry that I think I've learnt more into as a result of being in Te Kāhui. Because I've heard so many incredible people share their stories and be vulnerable, and I've always seen like performance poetry as the one of the pinnacles of vulnerability because there's no page to hide behind. And I'm leaning into that a little bit more as a result of doing this mahi. So real grateful for that.
When, because you said before that you don't consider yourself a performer, but you also say that you're leaning more into the performance side of things. It sounds like I'm calling you out in a contradiction. That's not really where I'm going with this. It's not really where I'm going with this. I think more what I want to question is like, how do you navigate that for yourself? Like if you were to go up and read a poem, how do you navigate that for yourself to sort of at the same time challenge, I guess, like existing beliefs around what it means to perform a poem and how you feel right in performing a poem, you know, what feels good for you and what makes you feel confident as well?
Oh, that's such a cool question. I think it goes back to the idea of being as human as possible. So rather than framing it as like a performer, framing it as a storyteller who's got this lived experience or got this story behind them and is literally just sharing that rather than having to put on any series of facades to make that palatable for other people. Just as like our rangatahi and that we've worked with in corrections, like the last thing that I'd want them to do is feel like they have to change the way that they talk or that they story tell to be palatable. Because how disempowering is that, having to like squish your story or squish your words as they leave your mouth into something that people will resonate with just by virtue of you telling a story. The story itself holds power, and that's what people should be resonating with, not all the like fluffy stuff around it. I'm not sure whether that made sense.
It does make sense. It does make sense because I think me as a performer, I'd say like, because I don't have a huge performance background. The only like performance training that I've had in my life is drama at high school, but drama at high school very much is of, I guess, the school of thought of like you enter a character, you enter your performance self when you perform, and then afterwards you drop that and you leave it on the stage. And so like I think, and it's something that I think I will continue to struggle with, is this ability to be completely human when, for lack of a better word, performing my poetry, because like it requires immense vulnerability to not be your storyteller self when you're sharing. It's much easier to be like, I'm doing this for you, than to be like, I'm doing this for myself.
Yeah, because it's confronting, but I've got huge respect for performers, and especially like those who have crafted expression in ways that can evoke really, really strong emotions in people. I mean, there's some, you've probably seen and talked with on the podcast, there are some incredible performance poets who can do that, and you just leave with your jaw on the floor, like so excited to engage in story again. And that's what performance poetry and storytelling should be about, being like this being continually inspired and reflective and expressive then. And so that is definitely a space that I want to explore more. But I think just being a storyteller and someone who is like...
Sorry. This is not the first time. This is not the first time that Siri has mansplained something on the podcast.
I hope that stays. I hope that stays in this one.
And it's always when I have a woman as a guest on the podcast as well.
Siri mansplaining, bruh. No.
As you were saying, you were saying that you want to explore the performance space more, but to be a storyteller,
it should just be inexplicably, I don't know, be very, very human.
Yeah.
And I think for my own like mental well-being, but also modeling that to the people that I share space with, like being as human as possible is something I really want to model, and storytelling rather than performing is a way that I can do that.
It's very it's very vulnerable, and I think that's like a very cool approach to come into the, like, I guess it's a cool value to hold as you like move into the performance space, to be like, yes, but not letting go of that sort of human part of myself, or that, not leaving that at the door.
And a lot of performers can like amplify that in their work, which
that's a sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
that's what I
Goals.
Get excited by and wanna work towards.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely early on that journey for sure.
You were also mentioning earlier when we were having a conversation over our cups of tea, that you can say if you don't want to talk about this, but you were mentioning over our cup of tea that there might be an anthology in the works from Te Kāhui's work.
Oh my gosh, yes. So in April last year, we over a year ago, we submitted a body of work from some of the rangatahi that we've worked with at one of the correction sites. And those that we work with have the opportunity to tick that yes, they'd want their work to be considered for an anthology. So we collected about, I want to say like 50 pieces, and submitted it for approval for publication. And back in April 2020, that didn't happen for various reasons, and we've kind of been going back and forth a lot since then. And just earlier this month, we got actual approval for publication, which is sick. And I got the email when I was in class and just like started crying, or like, my eyes got all red and welled up, because it's really been the combination of so many interactions and setbacks, and just it's been a very, very long journey. But we've got approval to publish an anthology. I don't want to say like a tentative time that it would be out, because that's still incredibly up in the air, but we're in the process of sussing things like cover art at the moment, sussing a launch for it, which is really exciting. And I think the thing that I'm most excited about is the fact that this is the physical publication, and fingers crossed a component of the launch as well is going to be specifically for those who've contributed to the anthology. So those who contributed and who participated in the program and had their work, and whose work will be in the anthology, are gonna get to hold it and feel it and see it on the page. See their stories. They're gonna get to see their work on the page, and for that to be celebrated, because we've got a real mix of work in the anthology, which is really exciting, and a real mix of experiences. And I think for their voices to be intentionally celebrated is something that goes against a lot of what the corrections space says about our rangatahi who are incarcerated.
Hard. I mean, like, I can say this because it's me, but like, yeah, I would go as far as to say that, like, the crux of what corrections is in its current state is saying that these voices shouldn't be heard, because that's like behind the whole philosophy of like putting people behind bars is shutting them up, right? So publishing their work goes directly in conflict with that, which is, again, I need a new word, but it's radical, you know, like
just seeing people as incredibly human, seeing that the rangatahi that will be published have such diverse lived experiences, have such rich stories, are incredible storytellers. So like dismantling the idea that to tell a story or to perform is top of the pyramid, like elite, you know, you have to train and do this and this in order to have your story valued. Like no, your voice is just as valued, and should be 100%.
Yeah, right. And so what happens with the proceeds of this book? I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really know enough about like publication and like selling books. That like how's that gonna work? Because I imagine that like you'll want to give back feedback into the the loop of things. I find it very hard to believe that you'd sell this and be like, we're gonna get rich.
No. Yeah, definitely not. Fortunately, Penguin Random House is supporting with a lot of the publication costs and with the launch costs. So, we're really, really lucky in that respect. And yeah, as you said, any
you've only just now mentioned that it's Penguin Random House. Like,
oh yeah,
shout out! It's huge.
Yeah.
It's massive that you got them to publish it. That's great.
In terms of the proceeds, it's gonna feed back into the kaupapa. Whether that's supporting the children of incarcerated peoples, and some of the kaupapa that support those children, or to similar arts-based storytelling kaupapa. The exact breakdown of where the proceeds are going to go is undecided, but it will definitely be reinvesting in the idea that storytelling and creativity should be equitable and accessible.
Great. Cool. I love that.
Exciting.
That's so good.
Exciting.
So,
should I get to the poem?
Yeah. To finish us off, you can. Do you want to tell us a little bit about? Do you want to tell us anything about the poem that you're sharing, or do you want to just dive straight into it?
I'm just going to bring it up first. So I whakapapa to Rotuma, which is in between Fiji and Tuvalu, but didn't grow up around whānau who spoke Rotuman too much, I think for various reasons. Te ao Pākehā and Te reo Pākehā kind of was what I grew up around. So the poem that I am hoping to read called Sefua, it speaks to the idea that language and the components of culture that language holds. The time that I was writing this, it felt very much locked in memory of my nan. And there were so many stories, and there are so many stories about her that I'll never know. And so many stories that can only be captured in Rotuman, so Saksai Whakapapatu Rotuma, that I'll never know because I'm still learning Rotuman. And so this poem was both written as a testament to her, but also to the idea of like how beautiful it is to be a diasporic young person on their reclamation journey, and to be descendant of like such power and love embodied.
Great.
So this is Sefua. When we sneeze, we say, Sefua, please. Do not burst open, but poise at the floodgates that moment longer and breathe just one more time. And should we choose to honor the love we both deserve, let this be a conversation. Wait, and our words, they will play together. Watch them burst in the backseat, kolohikai on repeat, KFC, we'll eat and we'll laugh. And sip Pepsi from plastic wine glasses, and pull chicken flesh from the gaps in our smile. In my grandmother's tongue, we know love in motion, anisiof. I love across an ocean. I'm a daughter of the diaspora, but my tupuna insist on coating my tongue in a pay mats whakpehe on a Friday woven gods speak to the earth in cup 10 claps. We'll practice being good descendants today. Anisiof, sometimes this love cannot cling to empty English, so we torture our tongues, tell them they are unworthy, trip, spit, and stutter between languages because this love, I heard my father's Rotuman tongue lie flaccid when his mother died. His words had no one to play with, Sefua. Her funeral was the first time I saw him burst, Sefua, please, Sefua, please. Sefua, please, Sefua, please do not burst on me. In my grandmother's tongue we know of love and motion, anisiof. Map our lives according to those we've ever loved. Back to the mother's whanua, the land, the first thing they ever loved. Us, this love stretches from the Atua to Hawaii, across oceans and open palms, to my nan and her tapa skin. I massaged the knotted histories from her neck and trust have held more than just her head up. 'Cause there are half-peeled mandarins left in the fruit bowl, and there is a rosary on her pillow, and we pray. Catholicism was our first language. Isalei, we sung to the grave. Anisiof, she is the love I wish did not pass in motion. Love stumbles in different tongues, but the blue persists in our veins. We must not be far from the ocean now. One day our words, they will play together again and cry together again. Kneel for communion together again, Anisiof. When we sneeze, we say, Sefua, please. Do not burst, but resurface, gasping and giggling strong in yourself, your tenacious tongue. Speak and love in grandmother's tongue.